The hospital lay silent and still, a desolate tomb in the early hours of the morning. The sterile corridor is drenched in the unsettling glow of flickering fluorescent lights. Nurse Lena leaned wearily against the reception desk, her eyelids drooping under the weight of a double shift that had tested her patience and resolve. The air conditioner's hum filled the room, a steady drone that gently coaxed her into the embrace of slumber. She rubbed her eyes, battling the heaviness of sleep, and lifted a chipped mug to her lips, taking a sip of the cold coffee within. The silence weighed heavily, as though the very structure of the building was poised in anticipation, longing for a moment that would disrupt the tranquility. The automatic doors whispered open, and Lena's gaze shot upward. A young woman stumbled into the lobby, her gait faltering, one hand clutched firmly against her abdomen. Her visage appeared wan, nearly spectral beneath the unforgiving glare of the lights, while her dark tresses adhered to her dampened brow. Her eyes, wide and frantic, flitted about the room as though in desperate pursuit of salvation. Lena rose, her fatigue momentarily set aside, and rushed to her side. "Excuse me, miss, are you feeling okay?" she inquired, her tone gentle yet insistent. The woman hesitated before responding. She pressed her weight against the wall, her breath escaping in quick, uneven bursts. With her free hand clutching the edge of a nearby chair, her knuckles turned white as she struggled to maintain her balance. "Please," she whispered, her voice a mere breath. "I need help." Lena's heart quickened at the palpable fear in her voice. With a tender touch, she led the woman to a chair, her hand resting lightly on the arm as if to offer both support and solace. "Please take a seat if you would. I am currently in the process of contacting the doctor." Lena hurried back to the desk, her fingers clumsily navigating the phone as she dialed the extension for Dr. Merriam, the on-call physician renowned for her unwavering composure. The phone rang once, and then Merriam's voice broke through the silence, refreshing yet cozy. "Lena, what troubles you?" Lena cast a fleeting look at the woman, now slouched in the chair, her expression twisted in agony. A young woman occupies the lobby, her presence unmistakable. She appears to be in distress, clutching her abdomen, her expression one of sheer terror. She is requesting the presence of a doctor. "I'm on my way," Merriam declared, her voice steady and unwavering. "Maintain her tranquility and ensure she remains seated." Lena ended the call and moved back to the woman, kneeling beside her with a quiet intensity. "The doctor is on their way. Could you please share your name with me?" The woman's eyes slowly opened, her lips quivering slightly. "Emma," she persevered, her voice trembling. "My name is Emma." "You're safe here, Emma," Lena said, her smile a careful mask of reassurance. "Could you share what is causing you pain?" Emma's hand clenched over her abdomen, her fingers splayed wide as if to keep herself intact. "It's my stomach," she whispered. "It began a few days prior, merely a dull ache, yet now it has intensified. There's a sensation stirring within me." Lena felt a knot form in her stomach at the words, yet she maintained a calm facade. "The physician will unravel the mystery, I assure you." Footsteps reverberated through the hallway, and Dr. Merriam emerged, her white coat billowing behind her as she advanced with determined strides. Her dark eyes swept over Emma, absorbing the pallor of her complexion and the glistening beads of sweat that adorned her skin. She knelt beside her, her voice soft yet inquisitive. "Greetings, Emma. I am Dr. Merriam. Could you please elaborate on the nature of this pain you are experiencing?" Emma's eyes locked onto hers, a blend of urgency and solace swirling between them. "It feels as if something is alive in there," she murmured, her voice trembling. "I implore you, doctor. I need your assistance." Mariam's hands, steady and sure, masked the unease that slithered up her spine as she guided Emma through the shadowy corridor toward the examination room. The stillness of the hospital enveloped her, a heavy cloak of quietude pierced only by the distant hum of fluorescent lights and the gentle whisper of Emma's sneakers gliding over the gleaming floor. Shadows clung to the walls, stretching and twisting as if they possessed a will of their own, while the air bore a sterile chill that appeared to seep into Miriam's very bones. Emma moved alongside her, her breath quick and irregular, each step a struggle against the ache emanating from her center. Her eyes, shimmering with trepidation, flitted to every shadowy nook, as though anticipating the emergence of an unseen presence from the gloom. Within the confines of the examination room, the sterile white walls and polished metal instruments offered no solace to the palpable tension in the air. Miriam beckoned Emma to take a seat at the table, yet Emma lingered, her fingers gripping her abdomen with such intensity that her nails pierced her skin. "The situation is deteriorating," she murmured, her voice quaking with a fear that sent a pang through Miriam's heart. "It feels as though it is filled with anger." Her words lingered in the atmosphere, dense and disquieting, as though she were revealing a truth that transcended understanding. Miriam managed to maintain a serene smile, even as a whirlwind of questions swirled in her mind. "Shall we examine this, Emma? Please recline and allow yourself to unwind." Emma acquiesced, her motions rigid, her expression a facade of trepidation. As she reclined, her breath caught in her throat, and a solitary tear traced a path down her cheek, glimmering in the unforgiving light above. Miriam slipped on her gloves, instinctively tapping into her training, even as an unsettling feeling crept in that this was far from an ordinary case. With a delicate touch, she raised Emma's shirt, anticipating signs of inflammation, or possibly an abscess. Yet what lay before her froze her in place. Her breath hitched in her throat, and for an instant, the room appeared to sway. Emma's lower abdomen was a writhing mass of tiny white maggots, their glistening bodies squirming in and out of her skin, a grotesque mockery of existence. The scene was so foreign, so unsettling, that Miriam's stomach twisted, and she struggled against the instinct to pull away. "My God," Miriam murmured, the words slipping out before she could rein them in. Emma's gaze shot upward, her eyes filled with a surge of alarm. What could it be? She wept, her voice trembling. "What is wrong with me?" Miriam took a deep breath, summoning her composure with determination. "Emma, it appears to be an infection, but rest assured, we will take the necessary steps to treat it. Maintain your composure." Her voice remained unwavering, yet within her, turmoil churned. In all her years of dedication and experience, she had never encountered anything quite like this. Emma's hands darted to her face, her sobs stifled as she shook her head in despair. "I realized it was far from ordinary," she gasped. "It began following Lucas. He has changed so much." Discussing these individuals, this collective. They had vowed to give him the world, and now this. Her voice faded into a mere whisper, her form quaking as though the burden of her terror could shatter her. Miriam's thoughts seized upon the name. "Lucas, tell me about him," she said softly, her gloved hands lingering over Emma's abdomen, uncertain of where to start. Emma's voice floated through the air, scarcely more than a whisper. "He is my boyfriend, or rather, he was my boyfriend. Just a few days prior, he exhibited an odd, desperate demeanor. He claimed I held significance in his future, yet it felt off. It was then that the pain began to seep in." Her gaze locked onto Miriam's, silently begging for clarity. Miriam nodded, her determination solidifying. "I assure you, Emma, we will find a way to resolve this." As Miriam readied herself to tidy the space, the hospital's stillness appeared to thicken, the soft buzz of the lights becoming subtly dissonant, as if issuing a caution. She was unable to dispel the sensation that an unseen presence lurked nearby, a being that flourished in the dim corners of this clinical environment, biding its time for the perfect opportunity to pounce. The examination room loomed like a prison, its clinical walls constricting around Emma as she reclined on the table, her breath coming in shallow, uneven gasps. The fluorescent light overhead emitted a faint buzz, its harsh glow intensifying the shadows that lingered beneath her eyes. "Doctor," Miriam moved with urgency, her gloved hands deftly tending to the squirming mass on Emma's abdomen, executing her task with a precision that masked the terror of the scene before her. The maggots writhed beneath her fingers, their shimmering forms a repulsive affront to Emma's skin. It was Emma's face that lingered in Miriam's mind, pale and marked by tears, her eyes deep and hollow, filled with a fear that appeared to gnaw at her from the inside. Miriam administered a dose of painkiller into Emma's arm, observing the gradual release of tension in her body, her once clenched fists beginning to relax. "This should help," Miriam said softly, her voice cutting through the oppressive silence like a lifeline. Emma nodded, her lips quivering, yet the fear in her eyes lingered, suggesting that the anguish was merely a manifestation of something much more sinister. Miriam settled next to her, her voice soft and soothing. "Emma, you brought up Lucas. Could you share more details about him? Is there anything that could shed light on the current situation?" Emma's gaze wandered to the ceiling, her breath catching as a tide of memories surged forth. "He hadn't always been this way," she murmured, her voice delicate, as if it could break at any moment. Lucas exhibited kindness. He would bring me coffee during my late-night study sessions, coaxing laughter from me when stress loomed large. We were truly happy. Her voice wavered, and a cloud of sorrow swept over her features, as though the recollection of that joy had torn open an old scar. However, approximately 6 months prior, he underwent a transformation. He encountered these individuals at a networking gathering. He claimed that the affluent and influential could transform his existence. Miriam leaned in, her notepad slipping from her grasp as she absorbed every word. The silence of the hospital thickened, the far-off murmur of machines adopting an unsettling rhythm, reminiscent of a heartbeat from a realm beyond our own. Emma's voice softened, tinged with a blend of melancholy and apprehension. Once upon a time, there existed a man named Mr. Kane. Lucas spoke of him as if he were a deity, claiming he possessed it all: wealth, influence, and power. Lucas desired it. He began to linger in the night, returning transformed. His eyes were frigid, as if he were gazing beyond me rather than at me. Emma's fingers curled tightly around the hem of her hospital gown, her knuckles pale and tense. He would speak of sacrifices, of the notion that nothing is given without a cost. I initially believed he was referring to putting in more effort, but that wasn't the case. He was consumed by an all-encompassing obsession. One evening, he returned from one of their gatherings, his hands trembling, his voice oddly altered. He declared, "I am finished with waiting. I am determined to seize it all." I inquired about his meaning, yet he merely chuckled, a laugh that felt foreign to his usual self. Her voice faltered, and she covered her mouth with a trembling hand, suppressing a sob. A week has passed since then, and we were together, and his intensity was palpable, as if he craved something from me. He embraced me with an intensity that felt almost suffocating, murmuring promises of my place in his unfolding destiny. It lacked the essence of love. Instead, it resonated with a sense of wrongness. Miriam felt her heart race, her thoughts swirling as she sought to piece everything together. The writhing maggots, the searing pain, Lucas's unsettling metamorphosis, none of it aligned with any medical diagnosis she was familiar with. She placed her hand on Emma's shoulder, her voice unwavering, even as a sense of unease coiled within her chest. "Your efforts are commendable, Emma. This is truly beneficial. We shall uncover the truth of the matter." As Emma succumbed to slumber, weary and spent, Miriam found herself unable to dismiss the unsettling notion that the hospital's clinical confines concealed. A dark and ancient presence intricately linked to the name Lucas had uttered with a mix of awe and dread. "Mr. Kane, doctor." Miriam sat in her office, the soft illumination of her desk lamp creating elongated shadows that danced across the room. The hospital lay shrouded in an oppressive silence, punctuated only by the rare creak of the settling structure, a sound that seemed to carry the weight of whispers from an unseen presence. Before her lay Emma's case notes, a chaotic array of medical jargon and unanswered questions that could never convey the terror she had experienced. Maggots squirming within the living flesh, Emma's fearful murmurs concerning Lucas. The name Mr. Kane was uttered with a reverence that sent a chill down her spine. These were not signs she could identify through the pages of a textbook. She massaged her temples, the burden of her unawareness bearing down like the lifeless atmosphere enveloping her. Emma's words reverberated within her thoughts, a dissonance that felt profoundly unsettling. Miriam's training compelled her to pursue a logical explanation, possibly an infection or a rare parasite. Yet, an instinct deep within her whispered that this was something entirely different, something that transcended the limits of scientific understanding. She sought assistance, a soul who could perceive the extraordinary hidden within the mundane. With a steady hand, she lifted the receiver and dialed Dr. David, the esteemed senior gynecologist at the hospital, whose years of expertise could provide the guidance she desperately sought. The phone rang twice before his rough voice broke through the silence. "Miriam, the hour is late. What is this all about?" She inhaled deeply, finding her balance. "I have a patient, a young woman named Emma, who is experiencing severe abdominal pain, accompanied by a condition I've never encountered before. Her skin is crawling with maggots, David. There are no indications of external entry, nor is there a discernible source of infection." She recounts that it all began following an encounter with her boyfriend, who has been entangled with some dubious individuals. Her voice trembled, the ridiculousness of it all choking her words. A silence hung in the air, and when David finally broke it, his voice carried a weight devoid of its customary lightness. While I haven't personally managed that case, Miriam, it does ring a bell. In my formative years, I listened intently as colleagues recounted tales from distant locales, where patients presented with enigmatic symptoms that defied conventional diagnosis, frequently linked to abrupt shifts in their lives or the rituals they practiced. The locals referred to them as curses. Miriam's fingers curled around the phone, her logical thoughts recoiling at the utterance of the word. Goodness, David, you can't possibly mean that. Yet, as her words flowed, the haunting vision of Emma's contorted belly surged in her thoughts, both vivid and repulsive. I'm not suggesting that, David responded, his tone measured. However, this seems to venture into realms that remain somewhat elusive to us. There exists an individual who could provide assistance, Dr. Amina Stone. She is a medical anthropologist, having previously practiced as a physician. She delved into instances where medicine converges with various other influences. Miriam's doubt clashed with her yearning, yet the sight of Emma's tear-streaked face swayed her resolve. Could you please provide me with her contact information? She inquired. David vowed to dispatch it, urging, remain open, Miriam. At times, the essence of reality exists outside the boundaries of our conditioned perception. Once the call ended, Miriam swiftly composed a succinct email to Dr. Stone, outlining Emma's symptoms and the disquieting connection to Lucas. With a swift click, she sent the message, her heart racing as though she had just stepped over an unseen threshold. As she stepped back into Emma's room, she discovered her in slumber, her features still marked by the shadows of fear, even in the embrace of sleep. The monitors emitted a steady beep, yet a faint, discordant hum hung in the air, reminiscent of static from a radio searching for a signal. Miriam trembled, her gaze fixated on the window as the moonlight spilled in, creating sharp silhouettes that danced across the floor. For an instant, she believed she glimpsed a movement in the reflection, a fleeting glimmer of eyes that seemed to exist yet were absent. She blinked, and it vanished, yet the chill in her bones lingered, murmuring that whatever haunted Emma transcended the boundaries of her flesh. The morning light barely penetrated the chill of the hospital's corridors, where the air was thick with the sharp scent of antiseptic and an elusive, acrid undertone that set Dr. Miriam's nerves alight. She wove her way through the labyrinth of corridors toward Dr. David's office, her footsteps reverberating in the silence, each step a testament to the mystery surrounding Emma's case. The sight of those writhing maggots lingered in her mind, a grotesque enigma that taunted her extensive medical training. With her notes tightly in hand, she yearned for David's insights to cut through the fog of doubt clouding her mind. David's office resembled a chaotic haven filled with an array of books and worn certificates, while the walls were adorned with shelves that bowed beneath the burden of medical journals. He lifted his gaze from the cluttered desk, silver strands of hair glinting in the muted light, his eyes keen and alert even in the early morning haze. Miriam, he said, motioning toward a chair, your appearance suggests a night devoid of rest. She offered a wry smile as she settled into the seat. The likelihood of that happening seems rather slim after the events of last night. Emma's situation is truly unprecedented. She narrated the particulars with meticulous accuracy. Emma's abdominal pain, the mysterious maggots, her tale of Lucas and his fixation on a man named Mr. Kane. David sat in silence, his fingers intertwined, his demeanor becoming increasingly solemn with every utterance. As she concluded, he reclined, his eyes wandering into the distance. This is more than a mere infection, Miriam, he murmured, his voice barely above a whisper. I've come across instances such as this, uncommon and unrecorded, shared by colleagues who toiled in remote areas. Individuals presenting with enigmatic symptoms that elude medical explanation, marked by lesions, infestations, and unsettling sensations of movement, all intricately linked to rituals or misguided pacts. The inhabitants referred to them as curses. Yet I have a feeling it's something we have yet to identify. Miriam's doubt ignited, her logical thoughts bristling at the suggestion. Are you implying that this is beyond the natural realm? She inquired, her voice cutting through the air. David raised a hand, his demeanor calm and composed. I propose that it transcends our present comprehension. Emma's symptoms coincide intriguingly with her boyfriend's behavior. It suggests an intention, an influence from beyond. A woman named Dr. Amina Stone may be of assistance. She delved into the intricate connections between medicine and culture, Instances in which science falls short. Miriam's jaw clenched, yet the image of Emma's tear-stained visage dulled her defiance. "Very well," she replied. "Please send me her contact information." As Miriam exited David's office, her mind whirled, torn between reason and the disquieting notion that he might be correct. She stepped back into Emma's room, halting at the threshold as she observed her friend tossing and turning in restless slumber. Her visage twisted in fear. Emma's hands grasped desperately at the empty space around her, her voice emerging as a strangled whimper. "Within me," she whispered. Her words tangled in the clutches of a nightmare. They moved stealthily, observing intently. Miriam hurried to her side, softly nudging her to awaken. Emma's eyes snapped open, frantic and unfocused, before honing in on Miriam with a sharp intake of breath. "I saw them," she whispered, her voice quivering with emotion. "In the depths of my dream, shadows held eyes that glimmered in the dark, while unseen entities writhed beneath my skin, softly murmuring my name." Miriam's heart raced, the sterile chill of the room closing in around her like a vice. She grasped Emma's hand tightly. Her voice remained unwavering, even as fear slithered up her spine. "It was merely a dream, Emma. You are secure in this place." Yet Emma shook her head, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. It felt all too real. It seemed as though they lingered in the shadows, poised and expectant. The monitors emitted a rhythmic beeping, yet an eerie, unnatural hum appeared to throb beneath the surface of that sound. A voice emerged from an unnamed realm, one that Miriam could not identify. She cast her eyes toward the window, where the morning light appeared muted, as though an invisible force was pushing against the glass, yearning for a way in. "Doctor," Miriam perched at the nurse's station, the luminous glow of her laptop screen cutting through the shadows of the hospital's dim corridors. The atmosphere was heavy with the sharp scent of antiseptic, yet underneath it all, a subtle, acrid hint of decay hovered just beyond perception. Her fingers lingered above the keyboard, caught in a moment of uncertainty, before she composed an email to Dr. Amina Stone. With a sense of clinical detachment, she recounted Emma's case: an abdominal infestation, maggots present, yet no discernible medical cause emerged. Then came the disquieting details: Lucas's metamorphosis, his discourse on sacrifices, and the looming presence of Mr. Kane. Every word seemed to tread upon unfamiliar ground, a disloyalty to the very science that had shaped her existence. She pressed send, her heartbeat racing, as though she had summoned a secret into their presence. Emma reclined in her chamber, her breaths irregular, her complexion wan beneath the harsh glow of the fluorescent lights. Miriam examined her chart, observing a modest enhancement in her vitals. Yet the maggots remained, stubbornly resisting the antibiotics and antiseptics she had diligently administered. Emma stirred, her eyelids fluttering open, and Miriam bestowed a comforting smile upon her. "How are you feeling?" she inquired. Emma's eyes flitted to the shadows in the room, her voice a mere breath. "It's still here," she murmured, her fingers gripping the blanket tightly. "A presence lingers, observing, biding its time for my surrender." Miriam felt a shiver race down her spine at her words, the silence of the hospital becoming suddenly oppressive, as though the very walls were eavesdropping. Just as Miriam was about to reply, her laptop chimed, signaling the arrival of a new email. Dr. Amina Stone's response was brief but carried a sense of urgency. "Your situation is quite extraordinary, Dr. Miriam, yet it is not without precedent. I have experienced comparable symptoms associated with ritualistic practices. I will be arriving tomorrow morning to evaluate the patient. Get ready for a comprehensive approach, encompassing both medical and other aspects." Miriam revisited the message, her doubts clashing with a sense of relief. Stone's words suggested solutions, yet they simultaneously intensified the enigma, drawing her away from the familiar solace of her training. She cast a fleeting look at Emma, who was fixated on the ceiling, her lips forming words in a silent plea for salvation. Miriam ventured into the hallway, seeking clarity, yet the hospital's ambiance enveloped her with an oppressive weight. The fluorescent lights above flickered in a pattern that felt almost intentional, as if they were echoing her unease. She halted, her breath hitching, as a deep primal sound reverberated from the distant end of the corridor. A soft, pulsing murmur, akin to voices intertwining in a tongue she could not comprehend. "Emma, dear Emma," the words hung in the air, unmistakable and chilling. weaving through the silence with a deliberate intent, as though uttered by a presence that recognized her very essence. Miriam's heart raced, her gaze sweeping across the desolate corridor. The shadows appeared to throb, and in an ephemeral instant, she discerned a form, a towering, vague silhouette with eyes that glowed like smoldering coals. Its shape vanishes into the shadows as swiftly as it emerged. She staggered backward, her fingers clutching the wall, the chill of the tile anchoring her tumultuous thoughts. The murmurs dissipated, yielding to the comforting drone of the hospital. Yet the haunting imprint of those eyes remained, burning into her thoughts. Miriam rushed back to Emma's room, her determination solidifying even as fear gnawed at her insides. Emma sat upright, her complexion pale, her eyes filled with an unmistakable dread. "Have you caught wind of it?" she murmured, her voice quivering with emotion. It uttered my name, and Miriam nodded, unable to fabricate a response, her voice unwavering even as her hands trembled. "We are not solitary in this, Emma. Assistance is on its way." As she spoke, the shadows in the room thickened, and the faint, sour odor intensified, a quiet assurance that whatever haunted Emma was far from over. The hospital room loomed like a cell, its sterile walls pressing in, heavy with the burden of Emma's dread. The fluorescent lights hummed above, their flickering glow creating sharp shadows that appeared to dance in sync with her irregular breaths. "Doctor," Miriam lingered by the bed, her expression an unwavering facade of tranquility. Yet, a subtle flicker of unease danced in her eyes as she observed Emma gripping the blanket, her knuckles pale and tense. The echoes of the previous night's murmurs, Emma's name winding through the corridor, intertwined with that ephemeral ember-eyed figure, haunted Miriam's thoughts, a caution she could not ignore. Whatever haunted Emma transcended the realm of mere medical anomaly. A palpable presence lingered, and Miriam understood that answers were imperative. "Emma," Miriam said softly, settling down beside her, "this is undoubtedly challenging, yet it is essential for us to comprehend the actions taken by Lucas. If you feel inclined, I believe it would be wise to reach out to him. Occasionally, individuals disclose secrets when they believe they are unheard." Emma's eyes grew wide, a blend of fear and rebellion dancing across her features. "Call him," she whispered, her voice quivering with emotion. "After everything he's done, what if he finds amusement in my plight, or even more troubling, reacts with disdain?" Her fingers clenched the blanket, seeking stability amidst the torrent of recollections. Lucas's icy gaze, his enigmatic statements regarding her place in his destiny. Miriam rested her hand on Emma's shoulder, her touch unwavering. "You are not alone in this journey. I will remain here, and we shall document the call. A mere suggestion could guide us in halting this." Emma's eyes fell to her lap, her breath catching as she grappled with the thought. The stillness of the hospital weighed heavily in the air, interrupted solely by the soft, persistent buzz of the monitors. Yet beneath it all, Miriam was certain she detected a low, guttural pulse, reminiscent of a heartbeat echoing from somewhere deep within the walls. Emma's gaze locked onto hers, and in the midst of fear, a flicker of determination flared to life. "Okay," she murmured, her voice scarcely rising above a whisper. "I shall undertake this, for my own sake." Miriam extended her hand to Emma, her fingers quivering slightly as she unlocked the device. The screen's glow illuminated her face with an ethereal light, accentuating the weariness and sense of betrayal that marked her expression. She scrolled to Lucas's number, her thumb poised over the call button, as a torrent of memories surged forth, his laughter, his warmth, now overshadowed by the chilling ambition that had taken hold of him. "I loved him," she murmured, her voice barely rising above a whisper, as if the confession was meant for her own ears more than for Miriam's. "How could he betray me in such a way?" Miriam tightened her grip, her voice resolute. "You possess a strength that transcends his treachery, Emma. Let us seek the truth." Emma pressed the call button, her heart racing with a fervor that threatened to overshadow all other sounds. The phone rang once, twice, each chime echoing into the vastness of time. The room appeared to chill, the atmosphere laden with an invisible burden, as Miriam cast her gaze toward the window, half anticipating the return of those fiery eyes. A subtle static hiss emanated from the phone, sharp and disjointed, reminiscent of a voice striving to penetrate the silence. Emma's breath hitched, her gaze locked onto the screen, while Miriam initiated the recording app, her heart pounding in anticipation. The line connected, and Lucas's voice emerged, fluid yet tinged with a hint of impatience. "Emma, he uttered, the syllable laced with apathy. I was taken by surprise when you called. Emma swallowed hard, her voice trembling yet unwavering. Lucas, I am unwell. There's an unsettling feeling within me, one that emerged after our time together. Please tell me what you did. The static crackled, a deep, resonant hum threading its way through Lucas's stillness, and for an instant, Miriam believed she caught a whisper in the air. Her name, or perhaps it was Emma's, uttered by a voice that transcended humanity. The hospital room felt constricted, as Lucas's voice resonated within, his frigid indifference cutting through the static that buzzed over the phone line. Emma's hand quivered, the device clutched firmly to her ear. Her eyes shimmering with tears she resolutely held back. Doctor, Miriam settled beside her, the recording app illuminating her phone, preserving each word spoken. The atmosphere was thick, the hospital's clinical coolness infused with a bitter metallic scent that caused Miriam's skin to tingle. The monitors emitted a steady beep, yet beneath their cadence, a deep guttural hum throbbed, reminiscent of an ancient presence awakening in the darkness. Lucas, please, Emma implored, her voice trembling yet steadfast. I'm suffering. There's something within me, and I believe you understand the reason. Reveal the truth to me, the static crackled, a harsh screech that caused Miriam to recoil, and for an instant, Lucas's silence seemed to pulse with a presence, as though another entity was eavesdropping. As he spoke, his voice dripped with mockery, devoid of the warmth that Emma had once cherished. Are you unwell? It would be wise for you to consult a doctor, Emma. Please refrain from involving me in your complications. Yet his voice trembled, and a subtle, eerie echo followed his words, as if a hidden presence lingered just beyond the veil. Emma's hold grew firmer, her voice escalating with urgency. You've transformed, Lucas. Mr. Kane became the focal point of our conversation, on the subject of sacrifices. What have you done to me? The static crackled, a deep, throaty murmur threading its way through the air. Emma, my own. Miriam's heart raced, her gaze flitting to the window as the shadows appeared to deepen. Lucas chuckled, a hollow, eerie sound that seemed foreign to him. Do you seek the truth? Very well. I'd grown weary of merely getting by, Emma. Mr. Kane revealed to me an escape, a ceremony, an exchange, strength for a cost. You were that cost. Emma's breath hitched, a sob slipping from her lips as the words struck like a dagger. Could you clarify what you mean? She gasped for breath. Lucas's voice turned frigid, taking on an almost otherworldly quality, the echo now more pronounced, as if an unseen presence was articulating through him. The people of Kane imparted to me the art of its name, an entity, a power. It required a medium, a person dear to me. You have been selected by me. That evening, as we found ourselves entwined, I allowed it to seep in. It left an indelible mark on you, Emma. What are those elements within you? There lies a sign. The static surged, a tumult of murmurs defined my presence. As the lights flickered, the room was momentarily engulfed in darkness. Emma let the phone slip from her grasp, her hands instinctively shielding her face as tears streamed down, her body trembling under the heavy burden of betrayal. Miriam seized the device, cutting off the call as the static faded, yet the atmosphere remained electric, the acrid odor now overwhelming, akin to decay oozing from the very walls. She knelt beside Emma, her voice steady even as fear gnawed at her insides. Emma, direct your gaze towards me. He can no longer cause you pain. We shall confront this challenge side by side. Emma's eyes, glistening with tears, locked onto hers, and amidst the anguish, a flicker of defiance ignited. I won't let him win, she whispered, her voice trembling yet steadfast. Miriam assisted Emma in reclining, her thoughts swirling with Lucas's words, a powerful force, a vessel forever marked. The shadows in the room appeared to throb with a life of their own, and as Miriam cast her gaze toward the monitor, it flickered to life, revealing a momentary vision, a pair of fiery eyes locking onto hers, only to vanish in the blink of an eye. The hospital's hum transformed into a dissonant symphony, a low guttural chant that mirrored Lucas's confession, as though the entity he had summoned was now alert and furious, its essence permeating the very walls around him. Miriam clasped Emma's hand tightly, her determination solidifying. No matter what this was, it would not take her patient, not while she still had the strength to resist. The morning hustle of the hospital failed to alleviate the heavy chill that enveloped its corridors, where shadows appeared to linger even as sunlight streamed through the windows. Dr. Miriam lingered at the nurse's station, her gaze sweeping the corridor in search of Dr. Amina Stone, the medical anthropologist, whose email had hinted at solutions to the haunting plight of Emma. The recollection of Lucas's confession, his chilling acknowledgement of employing Emma as a conduit for a sinister power, seared into her thoughts, rivaled only by the haunting vision of those ember-like eyes on the screen. The hospital pulsed with an undercurrent of malevolence, its clinical exterior concealing a presence that murmured in the stillness. A woman drew near, her aura both authoritative and tranquil, her dark hair elegantly secured in a tidy bun, her gaze keen with a depth of understanding that cut through the hospital's somber atmosphere. "Dr. Miriam?" she inquired, her voice steady yet impactful. Miriam inclined her head, reaching out with her hand. "Thank you for your prompt arrival, Dr. Stone." Amina Stone held her grip with determination, her eyes unwavering as she scanned the environment, attuned to the invisible tension that lingered in the atmosphere. "Your email was compelling," she remarked. "Let us attend to the patient." Within the confines of Emma's room, the atmosphere was laden with a pungent metallic odor that had lingered in Miriam's senses ever since the murmurs commenced. Emma reclined in bed, her complexion wan, her gaze deep yet watchful, as if steeling herself for yet another onslaught. Under Miriam's care, the maggots had diminished, yet their presence remained, a grotesque echo of the violation that resided within her. Miriam presented Stone, who took a seat beside Emma, exuding a gentle yet commanding presence. "Emma, I'm here to assist you," Stone declared. "Could you share your experiences, particularly in the aftermath of Lucas?" Emma's voice quivered as she relayed the agony, the writhing maggots, and Lucas's haunting words regarding the ritual. Stone remained silent, her face impassive, yet the depth of her gaze revealed a flicker of understanding. As Emma concluded, Stone leaned in, her tone deliberate yet somber. She asserted that what Lucas did was no mere accident. He took part in a ritual, presumably led by this Mr. Kane, to invoke a parasitic entity, a force that thrives on human vitality to bestow power upon its summoner. These entities necessitate a vessel, an individual emotionally connected to the summoner, to ground them in our realm. "Emma, it was you that Lucas selected." That evening, he engaged in a binding ritual, presumably through a physical connection, to channel the entity into you. Miriam's skepticism ignited, yet the precision of Stone's words quelled her uncertainties. Emma's eyes grew wide, her fingers gripping the blanket tightly. "The larvae, do they belong to it?" she murmured softly. Stone nodded, her voice steady and unwavering. "They serve as a tangible embodiment of the entity's corruption, a testament to its grip on your very being. It flourishes in the shadows of your fear and despair, transforming your very flesh into a banquet for its insatiable hunger. The purpose of the ritual was to sap your energy, empowering Lucas and his companions in the process." The atmosphere in the room shifted, a chill creeping in as the fluorescent lights flickered, seemingly in reaction, while a low, guttural hum throbbed beneath the monitors, reminiscent of a heartbeat echoing from an abyss. Stone's words conjured a striking terror, an amorphous being, its nature a twisting amalgamation of insatiable desire, its gaze aflame with timeless malevolence called forth by Cain's hushed vows. Miriam felt her heart race, the sterile walls of the hospital transforming into a fragile barrier against an instinctual force. "What measures can we take to put an end to it?" she inquired, her tone unwavering even as trepidation coiled within her heart. Stone's eyes locked onto hers, unwavering. "We combat it with medicine to restore her body and rituals to break its grip. Yet, the essence of Emma's fortitude lies in her ability to cast aside its sway." Emma's eyes filled with tears, yet a glimmer of defiance shone through, a quiet promise to wrest herself from the shadows that Lucas had cast. Dr. Amina Stone's presence anchored the hospital room, her calm authority contrasting sharply with the sour metallic stench that lingered in the air like a curse. Emma sat straight, her hands quivering yet her gaze locked onto Stone, as though grasping the hope of redemption. Dr. Miriam lingered at a distance, her arms folded, her doubts softened by the stark clarity of Stone's account. The entity loomed, its ritual unfolding with maggots as a grotesque signature. The hospital's fluorescent lights flickered, casting fleeting shadows that pulsed with intent. Miriam struggled against the urge to glance at the window, where those burning eyes had haunted her before. "We will confront this challenge on two fronts," Stone declared, her voice unwavering. "We shall persist with antibiotics and antiseptics to eradicate the physical infection. Through the sacred practice of cleansing rituals, we shall break the entity's grip on our spirits. Emma, summon your inner strength. Envision a radiant light within you, a protective shield that wards off this encroaching darkness." With an unwavering gaze, she presented Emma a small card adorned with a printed prayer. "This serves as a shielded plea. Delve into it this evening, concentrate on the illumination, and trust in your strength to withstand." Emma nodded, her fingers gliding along the card's edges, her expression a blend of trepidation and resolve. Miriam meticulously adjusted Emma's IV, her hands unwavering even as a sense of unease coiled within her chest. "I'll increase the antibiotic dose," she said, casting a sidelong glance at Stone. "Yet one must ponder, how can we be certain that this prayer will yield results?" Stone's smile was subtle yet assured. "It transcends mere words, Dr. Miriam. It is Emma's determination, her steadfast rejection of becoming a mere vessel. The being thrives on hopelessness, yet her resilience will diminish its power." Miriam nodded, her analytical mind wrestling with the principles of belief, yet Emma's determination strengthened her resolve. That evening, Emma found herself solitary in her chamber, the stillness of the hospital pierced solely by the soft murmur of the monitors. Now infused with a low, jarring hum that appeared to seep from the very walls, she clutched the prayer card tightly. Its words are simple yet profound. "A gentle armor, guarding me against danger." Her hands trembled as she started to read, her voice barely audible, each syllable a struggle against the fear that gripped her heart. "Light of protection," she whispered, her eyes gently shutting as she envisioned a warm radiance blossoming from her heart, expanding outward like a shield. The words resonated oddly, yet they ignited something deep within her, a flicker of warmth, a spark of rebellion against the force that had intruded upon her. With each recitation of the prayer, the temperature dipped, the acrid odor thickened, and a soft, primal murmur crept through the space. "Emma, my dear." Her breath caught in her throat, her eyes widening in surprise, yet she forged ahead, her voice elevating, quivering yet unwavering. "Protect me from danger." The brilliance within her thoughts intensified, a luminous force that pushed back the shadows, and for an instant, she sensed a weightlessness as though the wriggling of the maggot had diminished. Yet the whisper lingered, more insistent now, as the shadows in the corner began to merge, crafting an indistinct, menacing figure that dissipated with the slightest flutter of her eyelids. Miriam stepped into the room, her spirits soaring at the sight of Emma's resolute demeanor. "You're doing it," she said, her voice a gentle yet resolute whisper. "Your essence reveals it to me." Emma forced a tremulous smile, yet her gaze flickered to the corner, where the atmosphere remained thick with unspoken tension. "It remains," she murmured, "yet I sensed an unnameable presence. I feel more powerful." Miriam nodded, her faith in Stone deepening, yet the hospital's discordant hum persisted, a haunting reminder of the entity's power. She cast a fleeting look at the monitor, its screen shimmering with a ghostly light, and could have sworn she detected a shadow shifting within, a mute harbinger that their battle was far from concluded. The chapel within the hospital stood as a modest sanctuary, a refuge of warmth that contrasted sharply with the sterile coldness of the surrounding corridors. Sunlight filtered through the stained glass windows, scattering vibrant rainbows that danced upon the wooden pews. Dr. Miriam stood at the threshold, arms crossed, observing as Emma entered, her movements cautious yet resolute. The atmosphere was imbued with a delicate aroma of candle wax and gleaming wood, a striking juxtaposition to the acrid metallic odor that lingered in Emma's space. Miriam's skepticism lingered like a shadow, yet Dr. Amina Stone's words, coupled with Emma's subtle improvement following her initial prayer, had pried open a door in her mind, one she hesitated to cross. Yet Emma's bravery, her determination to rise above Lucas's betrayal, compelled her to make an effort. Muksu Joshua entered, his presence both gentle and commanding, his gray eyes emanating a compassion that appeared to soften the chapel's edges. His clerical collar shimmered in the gentle glow, and his smile radiated warmth as he made his way toward Emma, who occupied the front pew, tightly grasping the prayer card made of stone. "Emma," he said, his voice a gentle caress. "I'm Joshua. Dr. Miriam shared with me the challenges you are encountering. I am here to assist you in discovering your inner strength. Emma's eyes locked onto his, her complexion wan but her gaze unwavering, a glimmer of hope piercing the veil of fear that had enveloped her since Lucas's revelation. The chapel's silence enveloped the space, interrupted solely by the subtle creak of the pews and a distant, jarring hum that appeared to emanate from the very walls of the hospital, a haunting reminder of the presence that continued to linger. Joshua settled next to Emma, carefully unfolding a tattered Bible to reveal Psalm 35. "This is a prayer of protection," he articulated, his voice unwavering yet passionate. "It demands resilience in the face of those who wish to bring you harm. Join me in reading this, Emma. Allow the words to serve as your armor." He offered her the Bible, its pages worn and tender from countless readings, and Emma's fingers quivered as she ran them over the verses, her voice barely audible as she started to speak. "Contend, Lord, with those who contend with me," she read, her voice trembling at the outset, each syllable a battle against the heavy burden of her fear. The chapel appeared to envelop her in warmth, the hues of the stained glass deepening, as though her voice had summoned a response from the very walls. She shut her eyes, envisioning the luminous shield stone that had been spoken of, a golden glow emanating from her heart, driving away the encroaching darkness that had seeped into her being. She pressed on, her voice gaining strength, the words forming a protective shield around her very essence as she declared her resolve to confront those who opposed her. For an instant she experienced a sense of buoyancy, as though the writhing of the maggots had ceased, their grip loosening in response to the strength of the prayer. Miriam observed, her breath hitching at the change in Emma's expression, as fear surrendered to determination, and despair faded into a serene resilience. The air within the chapel shimmered delicately, or maybe it was merely an illusion cast by the light, yet Miriam was certain she sensed a warmth caress her, akin to a whisper from a realm beyond. Still, the hospital's hum lingered, a deep, resonant growl that appeared to begrudge Emma's rebellion, while the shadows in the corners deepened, their contours more defined, as if something lurked just out of view. With a reassuring smile, Joshua rested his hand gently on Emma's shoulder. "Emma, you are making it happen. This is your strength, your brilliance." Emma nodded, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears, yet her voice remained unwavering as she completed the psalm. "I sensed it," she murmured, her eyes far away yet filled with promise. Miriam stepped forward, her skepticism softening as she realized she was not alone. However, when she glanced at the chapel's doorway, a faint, sour smell drifted in, and the hum grew sharper, a silent warning that the entity was far from defeated. The chapel radiated a comforting warmth as Muksu Joshua uncorked a small vial of anointing oil, the delicate aroma of myrrh slicing through the hospital's harsh metallic odor. Emma sat in the pew, her hands firmly gripping the Bible, the verses of Psalm 35 resonating in her thoughts. The stained glass windows radiated an otherworldly luminescence, yet the shadows lurking in the room's corners appeared to twist and turn, as though begrudging the holiness that surrounded them. Dr. Miriam lingered by the door, arms crossed, her analytical mind grappling with the unmistakable change in Emma's behavior. Her fear lingered, yet it was softened by an emerging determination, a flicker of rebellion against the shadows that Lucas had set free. Joshua immersed his fingers in the oil, each motion purposeful, his voice gentle yet echoing with depth. "This oil is a symbol of protection, Emma," he said, his gray eyes unwavering. "It serves as a gentle reminder that you are not solitary, that a more profound light accompanies you." He drew a delicate cross upon her forehead, the oil soothingly cool against her skin, and commenced his prayer, his words flowing in a rhythmic chant that enveloped the chapel in a tangible warmth. "May this radiant light envelop you, dispelling the shadows and rejuvenating your spirit." Emma shut her eyes, her breath becoming steady as she envisioned the golden light from her earlier prayer, now more radiant, surrounding her like a protective shield. The writhing of the maggots appeared to diminish, their presence becoming less suffocating, as though the entity's hold was faltering beneath the burden of her unwavering faith. The air within the chapel shimmered, the hues of the stained glass deepening, as Emma's shoulders eased, a subtle smile gracing her lips. "I feel it," she whispered, her voice quivering with wonder. "It feels as though I am gaining strength, as if its grip is beginning to fade." Joshua nodded, his smile bright and warm, Yet Miriam felt her heart race as the hospital's jarring hum intensified, a deep growl that resonated through the pews. The acrid odor grew stronger, now tinged with a nauseating sweetness, as the shadows in the corners merged, taking shape into a towering, indistinct silhouette with eyes that glowed like smoldering coals. It takes shape, flickering like smoke before fading away. A deep, resonant murmur coiled its way through the chapel. "She is mine, you cannot take her." The words cut through the air, sharp and venomous, echoing like a haunting chorus from an endless void. Emma's eyes flew open, her breath hitching in her throat, yet she clutched the Bible with fierce determination, her voice escalating in resolute defiance. "You don't own me," she declared, her voice a soft yet powerful challenge. The murmur wavered, the darkness pulling back, yet the atmosphere stayed dense, the being's fury a palpable burden that bore down on Miriam's heart. Miriam advanced, her heart pounding, her doubts dissolving in the face of the undeniable presence she had just encountered. "Is it functioning as intended?" she inquired of Joshua, her tone hushed yet insistent. He nodded, his demeanor composed yet cautious. "It struggles against her, yet Emma's resolve drives it back. This marks merely the onset of a grand journey." Miriam cast a glance at Emma, whose expression was carved with resolve, stirring within her a mix of admiration and trepidation. The maggots were dwindling, yet the entity's response hinted at a force far more formidable than she had ever envisioned, one that would not easily surrender its hold. Upon exiting the chapel, the hospital's corridors appeared shrouded in shadows, the fluorescent lights pulsating with a sinister cadence. Miriam's mind whirled, her scientific background at odds with the stark reality of her experience, the oil, the prayer, the fury of the entity. She had faith in Stone and Joshua now, yet the whispers persisted in her thoughts, a haunting reminder that their struggle was far from concluded. Emma walked alongside her, the Bible held tightly to her chest, her steps more assured, yet the lingering sour scent trailed behind them, a quiet assurance that the shadows were observing, biding their time for a moment to retaliate. Emma perched by the hospital window, the morning light streaming through the blinds, creating gentle stripes that danced across her face. The sterile room seemed to exude a lighter atmosphere today. The once persistent, sour metallic tang that had tormented her senses was now faint, nearly overshadowed by the crisp aroma of antiseptic. Her hands lay gently on her lap, freed from the grip of pain, and the maggots, those repulsive intruders that had claimed her as their own, were nearly eradicated, their writhing now a distant echo under Dr. Merriam's unwavering attention and the protective embrace of Psalm 35. Still, the hospital's quietude bore an unsettling tension, a dissonant murmur that hinted at the being's existence, observing, anticipating. Miriam stepped inside, her white coat pristine, yet her eyes bore the burden of their struggle. She examined Emma's chart, observing the enhanced vitals and the lack of new infestations. "You're making progress," she remarked, her tone imbued with warmth yet tinged with caution. "The antibiotics are proving effective, and whatever efforts Joshua and Stone are undertaking, they seem to be making a difference." Emma allowed a faint smile to grace her lips, her fingers gently gliding along the edge of the Bible resting on her bedside table. The prayers, the oil, the light she had envisioned, formed a delicate shield around her, one that kept the encroaching darkness at a distance, if only for the moment. As Miriam adjusted the IV, Emma's eyes wandered to the window, her thoughts meandering through the corridors of happier times. She beheld Lucas in his former glory, his laughter radiant as they sipped coffee in a sun-drenched cafe, his hand enveloping hers during those tranquil late-night strolls. Those moments seemed to belong to a different existence, taken away by the relentless ambition that had driven him toward Mr. Kane's enticing promises. "I once believed he was my destiny," she murmured, her voice heavy with sorrow. "How was I oblivious to his transformation? How did I allow him to claim so much of my essence?" Her eyes filled with tears, yet her jaw clenched, a flicker of defiance igniting inside her. Miriam settled beside her, a gentle warmth spreading across her features. "Emma, you loved him. What may appear as weakness is, in truth, a profound strength. He deceived you, yet you are reclaiming your own strength. That is what truly holds significance." Emma nodded, brushing away her tears, as the burden of her sorrow transformed into determination. Her mind wandered to the chapel, where Joshua's prayer enveloped her in warmth, and the light that had bravely repelled the entity's haunting whispers. "I want my life back," she declared, her voice unwavering. "Not merely to exist, but to truly embrace life, to rediscover myself without the weight of a shadow." The hospital's hum took on a subtly dissonant quality, a lingering reminder that the entity had not completely withdrawn. Yet Emma's words held a weight that appeared to still the chaos, if only for a fleeting instant. Miriam experienced a wave of admiration, her doubts regarding the spiritual realm dissipating in the light of Emma's remarkable transformation. She had witnessed the writhing maggots, caught the faint whispers in the air, and sensed the palpable malice of the entity lurking nearby. Yet Emma's bravery shone like a beacon against the encroaching shadows. "You're already on that path," Miriam said, her voice resolute. "We shall continue our struggle side by side." Emma's eyes drifted back to the window, where the sunlight shone more brightly, heralding the life she was determined to reclaim. She recalled the cafe, the strolls, the aspirations she had set aside for Lucas, and promised herself to unearth them once more. The shadows of the hospital persisted, their contours defined by the entity's lingering bitterness. Yet, in that moment, Emma discovered a newfound strength that eclipsed her fear. She held the Bible tightly, its heft serving as a reminder of her armor, and murmured a quiet prayer, seeking not only protection but also the fortitude to restore what was lost. The hum lingered, though it had softened, as if the entity recognized her burgeoning strength and paused, its insatiable desire briefly tempered by the radiance she was starting to command. The hospital's sterile corridors buzzed with an undercurrent of tension as Dr. Amina Stone stepped into Emma's room. Her presence served as a subtle anchor in the midst of the lingering sour tang that clung to the air. Emma perched on the edge of her bed, the Bible lying beside her, her expression illuminated yet still marked by the shadows of Lucas's betrayal. Dr. Miriam lingered close, her arms folded, her thoughts a tumultuous clash of scientific inquiry and the stark reality of the entity's malevolence. The fluorescent lights flickered softly, casting jagged shadows that appeared to observe, their edges keen with a lingering bitterness that had yet to dissipate. Stone sat opposite Emma, her gaze keen yet filled with empathy. "You possess a strength beyond your own understanding," she remarked, her tone unwavering. "The prayers and the oil are diminishing the entity's grip, yet it remains, simmering with rage, redirecting its insatiable appetite." Emma's brow knitted in concentration, her grip on the Bible growing more resolute. "Could you clarify what you mean?" Stone's eyes clouded with intensity, her voice heavy with significance. "Lucas transgressed the sacred boundaries of the ritual by disclosing its secrets to you. The being flourishes in the shadows, nourished by the unwavering allegiance of its conjurer. When he turned his back on that, it ultimately came back to haunt him. He is probably experiencing its fury at this moment." Visions dance before him, whispers echoing in the shadows, as his mind slowly unravels, devouring the very essence of his fear. Miriam felt her heart race, the sound of Lucas's frigid voice on the phone now tinged with a dark irony. "What implications does that hold for Emma?" she inquired, her tones soft yet insistent. Stone's expression bore an unwavering determination. "The entity within her is faltering, yet it remains unvanquished. It might strike out, attempting to reclaim her before it completely engulfs Lucas." The hospital's hum turned discordant, a guttural growl that echoed Stone's words, while a faint, sickly sweetness intertwined with the sour odor, reminiscent of rot flourishing in the shadows. Miriam was certain she caught a glimpse of the monitor flickering, a brief flash of burning eyes that disappeared as swiftly as it had appeared. Emma's jaw clenched, her trepidation transforming into a resolute strength. "I want him to confront his actions," she declared, her voice unwavering even as her hands betrayed a slight tremor. "Not merely this matter, but the very essence of the law itself. He is incapable of causing harm to anyone else." She gazed at Miriam, her eyes aflame with determination. "The recording is in our possession. Should we approach the authorities?" Miriam nodded, her respect for Emma's resilience eclipsing her remaining uncertainties. "We shall, and we shall prevail. I shall accompany you, Emma. He will not evade this fate." The stillness of the hospital grew more profound, with shadows in the corners thickening as if they were voicing their dissent. Miriam shivered, the atmosphere thick with the entity's bitterness, its murmurs soft yet undeniable, mine. Slithering through the walls, she set aside her fear, honing in on Emma's courage, the light she had begun to wield. "I will reach out to the authorities today," Miriam declared, her tone resolute. "We will ensure that Lucas is held accountable for everything." Emma felt her shoulders ease, a burden lifting, yet her gaze flickered to the window, where the sunlight appeared muted, as though something was pressing against it from beyond. As Stone readied herself to depart, she rested a hand on Emma's shoulder, her voice gentle yet resolute. "Continue to pray, Emma. Your strength serves as your greatest weapon." Emma nodded, gripping the Bible tightly, her determination shining like a light in the hospital shadows. Miriam observed her faith in science now softened by a reluctant admiration for the invisible powers they encountered. The hum continued, a deep primal warning, while the acrid scent hung in the air, an unspoken assurance that the presence remained, its appetite unabated, lurking in the darkness as they readied themselves to retaliate. The police station stood in sharp relief to the hospital's sterile gloom, its fluorescent lights glaring and relentless. Yet the atmosphere bore a familiar heaviness, a tension that clung to Emma's skin as she crossed the threshold. Her hands shook as she gripped the USB drive containing Lucas's recorded confession, yet her jaw was clenched, and her eyes burned with a determination born from the depths of betrayal. Dr. Miriam walked alongside her, a steadfast anchor in the storm, her white coat replaced by a modest jacket, yet her resolve burned with unwavering intensity. The hospital's acrid metallic scent clung to them, subtle yet unyielding, a haunting reminder of the entity's presence, its murmurs reverberating in Emma's thoughts. The reception area thrummed with energy, officers tapping away at their keyboards, phones ringing incessantly, yet all of it dimmed as Emma drew near the desk, her voice steady even as a tightness gripped her chest. "We need to speak to someone about a crime," she said, her voice unwavering, each word a reclamation of the power Lucas had attempted to take from her. The desk officer, her demeanor weary yet alert, arched an eyebrow before giving a nod, gesturing towards Thamtu Harris, a veteran investigator renowned for his straightforward methods. Miriam gently pressed her hand on Emma's shoulder, speaking in a hushed tone. "Your actions are commendable. I am present in this moment." Thamtu Harris encountered them in a confined office, his robust figure occupying the room, his gaze keen yet gentle. The desk lay in disarray, strewn with files, a half-empty coffee mug teetering on the brink, while the air was thick with the scent of aged paper and ink, laced with a subtle, sour note that churned in Emma's stomach. "What is this concerning?" Harris inquired, reclining in his chair, his eyes flitting between Emma and Miriam. Emma inhaled deeply, her grip on the USB drive growing firmer. "My former partner, Lucas, has left a mark on my life. He confessed during a call, and we captured it on tape. His actions have made me unwell, and it is imperative that he be halted." Miriam extended the USB drive to Harris, her voice steady yet resolute. "The recording unveils a calculated action that led to Emma's state. It may be atypical, yet it serves as a clear indication of a desire to inflict harm." Harris's brow knitted in confusion, yet he connected the drive to his laptop, his demeanor transforming to one of astonishment as Lucas's voice resonated throughout the space. Chillingly derisive, confessing to employing Emma as a mere instrument for a dark rite. His words carried that haunting echo that Miriam recalled vividly. "The people of Cain imparted to me the art of naming it. I welcomed it inside. What lies within you?" "There is a sign." The static crackled, a deep murmur threading its way through. "My own." The office lights flickered, casting ephemeral shadows that appeared to dance across the walls. Harris halted the recording, his complexion drained, his voice barely above a whisper. "This is unsettling." It was unlike anything I had ever encountered. He leaned in, his gaze fixed intently on Emma's. "Are you suggesting that this is what led to your illness? What type of ailment is it?" Emma's voice quivered yet remained resolute. "Worms, dwelling within my being." The discomfort began following his actions. It transcends the realm of medicine. It embodies something more profound. Harris's jaw clenched, yet he acquiesced with a nod, his doubts softened by the fierce belief shining in her gaze. "We shall delve into this matter. If he's entangled in something this grave, we will track him down." Upon their departure from the office, the clamor of the station appeared to be softened. The air thickened, and Emma believed she detected a distant, guttural hum reminiscent of the hospital's. As she glided through the shadows of the walls, Miriam's hand lingered on her arm, her voice unwavering. Your performance was nothing short of extraordinary, Emma. Yet Emma's gaze flickered to the shadows where a foul odor hung in the air, a quiet admonition that the presence was observing, its appetite unquenched by their initial stride toward retribution. The hospital's acrid metallic scent lingered in the air, trailing behind Emma and Dr. Merriam as they awaited news from Thumb to Harris. 2 days later, Lucas was discovered. The police had followed his trail to a crumbling house on the fringes of the city, a site steeped in decay and hopelessness. Harris's voice on the line carried a weight of despair, painting a picture of Lucas as a mere specter of his former self, ghostly pale and shaking, lost in a haze of murmurs about unseen eyes lurking in the darkness and incessant whispers that tormented him. "He's not quite right in the head," Harris remarked, his voice laced with discomfort. "However, he remains in custody, and we are in the process of preparing charges informed by the recording." Emma's heart raced, a blend of relief and foreboding, the entity's soft hum reverberating in her thoughts as a cautionary signal. Miriam navigated the road to the courthouse, her grip firm on the steering wheel, yet her gaze flitted to the shadows, where the atmosphere felt denser, tinged with the unsettling sweetness she had learned to link with the presence lurking there. The courthouse stood as a stark, formidable structure, its marble corridors reverberating with the sound of footsteps and muted conversations. Still, the acrid scent hung in the air, subtle yet undeniable, as though the presence had trailed behind them. Emma held her Bible tightly, the gravity of Psalm 35 anchoring her, her determination serving as a barrier against the anxiety that Lucas's presence could stir. Within the confines of the courtroom, Emma felt her breath hitch as Lucas was led in, his wrists bound, the remnants of his former confidence now fractured. His visage was emaciated, his gaze frenzied and inflamed, flitting to the shadows as if pursuing invisible terrors. His hands trembled, clawing at his arms, and Miriam observed subtle, undulating patterns beneath his skin, reminiscent of the maggots that had tormented Emma. A deep, throaty murmur appeared to resonate within the confines of the room. "Turncoat, belonging to me." The fluorescent lights flickered ominously, casting jagged shadows that caused the judge to hesitate, her gavel suspended in midair. Lucas flinched, his voice emerging as a hoarse whimper. "They have arrived," he murmured, his eyes drifting into the distance. "They persist in their relentless pursuit of my attention." Emma stood resolutely, her voice unwavering as she spoke to the court, her gaze fixed intently on Lucas. "He confessed to employing me in a ritual, to inflicting pain upon me for his own benefit. Evidence is at hand." The recording began, Lucas's chilling confession resonating throughout the room, its eerie echo more pronounced, as though the entity itself were communicating through it. The courtroom's atmosphere shifted, a palpable chill settling in as shadows lengthened. Emma stood resolute, clutching her Bible tightly against her heart. Lucas's head jerked upward, his gaze locking onto hers, yet it was devoid of life, as if the man she had cherished had vanished, devoured by the entity he had called forth. She experienced a rush of freedom, the burden of his treachery dissipating as she recognized him for what he truly was, a shattered instrument of a more sinister force. The judge commanded Lucas's detention, and as he was escorted from the room, he let out a scream, a primal, desperate cry that resonated with the fury of the entity. Emma let out a breath, her shoulders easing, the glow of her prayers providing a comforting warmth against the room's coldness. Miriam brushed her arm gently, her voice a whisper. "You confronted him, Emma. You did it." As they exited the courtroom, the hospital's hum resurfaced, a deep guttural growl that coiled its way through the marble corridors. The shadows appeared to throb, and Miriam was certain she glimpsed a glimmer of fiery eyes in the window's reflection, vanishing in a heartbeat, yet lingering with a bitter essence in the atmosphere. Her heart plummeted, her faith in their advancement dulled by a nagging dread. The entity, though diminished, still craved, and Lucas's demise marked merely the onset of its vengeance. The police precinct hummed with an undercurrent of tension, fluorescent lights illuminating the disarray of desks and the incessant ringing of phones. Yet a subtle, acrid scent hung in the atmosphere, a ghostly reminder of the hospital's ominous shadow. Dr. Miriam found herself seated in Thamtu Harris's office, her hands tightly clasped, her mind haunted by the courtroom. Chilling echoes, Lucas's desperate screams, the flickering lights, and those searing eyes lurking in the shadows. The entity's wrath had left its mark upon him, and while Emma was on the mend, Miriam remained haunted by the unsettling thought that their triumph was not wholly realized, that the shadows they had confronted lingered still unyielding. Harris reclined in his chair, his visage marked by fatigue, a pile of documents on his desk adorned with enigmatic titles and symbols. "We have thoroughly investigated this matter, Mr. Kane." He spoke in a hushed tone, as though cautious of eavesdroppers. "He transcends the role of a mere businessman. He stands as the leader of a collective, a group that some might even label a cult, for want of a more fitting term. They move stealthily, affluent individuals who think they can barter existence for influence. The incursion into their gathering spot revealed a trove of ritual artifacts, candles, symbols, bloodstains, each element intricately woven into the fabric of Lucas's confession, a haunting reminder of his actions toward Emma. The atmosphere thickened, the acrid scent becoming more pronounced, and Miriam could have sworn she detected a distant, guttural resonance, as if the very essence of the hospitals was creeping through the walls. Miriam felt her heart race as the vision of Lucas's ritual unfolded in her mind, a binding act designed to summon a parasitic entity, now intricately linked to a far more malevolent web. "What is the situation with Lucas?" she inquired, her tone unwavering even as a shiver danced along her spine. Harris's countenance grew somber. "He has received a sentence of 7 years for assault and endangerment, a decision grounded in the recording and Emma's testimony. Yet he seems to have lost his true essence. Last night, we discovered him in his cell, frantically scratching at his skin, his screams echoing with tales of eyes observing him, of unseen things crawling within. The prison doctor claims it's psychosis, yet," he paused, his gaze flickering to the window, where the daylight appeared muted, as though something were pressing against it. Miriam's heart sank as the words of Dr. Amina Stone reverberated in her thoughts. The entity unleashed its wrath upon him for transgressing the sacred rules of the ritual. Lucas's punishment transcended the bounds of legality. It was a supernatural ordeal, a gradual disintegration meticulously crafted by the entity he had called forth. "He is experiencing the depth of Emma's emotions," she murmured, the dread of it resting heavily in her heart. Harris inclined his head, his tone somber. "We discovered traces on his arms, squirming like worms beneath the surface of his skin. No medical explanation, whatever he referred to, it remains unresolved with him." The shadows in the office appeared to throb, the fluorescent lights flickering in a cadence that resonated with the hum, now more pronounced, almost expressive. "My betrayer." Miriam's breath hitched, her gaze darting to the shadows, where the darkness appeared to gather, shaping a transient figure with glowing eyes that disappeared the moment she blinked. The acrid scent transformed into a cloying sweetness, reminiscent of decay flourishing in the atmosphere, and Harris shifted uneasily, as though he could feel it as well. "This case isn't typical," he confessed, his voice scarcely rising above a whisper, "but we're putting an end to Kane's group. No one else suffers quite like Emma." Miriam nodded, her determination fortified by Emma's bravery. Yet the entity's presence remained, a quiet reminder that its appetite was far from quenched. Lucas's destiny unfolded as a dark retribution, his thoughts and form devoured by the very entity he had betrayed Emma to invoke. Yet Miriam could not dispel the dread that the entity's fury reached further than him, its searing gaze still locked onto Emma. Anticipating a lapse in resolve, the hum diminished, yet the shadows lingered, their contours defined by a sinister intent that assured this was far from over. Emma entered the hospital's examination room, the familiar sterile chill welcoming her as if it were an old foe. Yet the once suffocating sour metallic tang had faded to a mere whisper, eclipsed by the crisp aroma of antiseptic. Her steps were firm, her hands now calm. The Bible nestled in her bag, a quiet emblem of the light she had carried into the shadows. Dr. Miriam positioned herself beside the examination table, her smile radiating warmth, yet her eyes bore the heavy burden of their collective struggle. The fluorescent lights hummed gently, their flicker now less foreboding. Still, the hospital's silence bore a faint, discordant hum, a delicate echo of the entity's enduring presence. Miriam conducted a final inspection, her gloved hands tenderly exploring Emma's abdomen. "No signs of infestation," she said, her voice tinged with relief. "The antibiotics and your other efforts have proven effective." Emma nodded, her fingers lightly grazing the cross necklace she had begun to wear. A cherished gift from Muksu Joshua. The maggots had vanished, the agony now a mere echo, yet the scars left by Lucas's treachery, both on her body and in her heart, lingered on, a testament to her resilience. "I feel like myself again," she said softly, her eyes shining with a resilient strength. "But I'll never forget what he did." While Miriam meticulously updated her chart, Emma found her mind drifting toward the possibilities that lay ahead. She became a member of a support group for victims of cults, akin to Mr. Kane's, a close-knit gathering of survivors who convened weekly to exchange their narratives and reconstruct their lives. The initial gathering had felt overwhelming, their expressions reflecting her own anguish, yet their strength ignited a spark of inspiration within her. She had spoken of Lucas, the ritual, the entity, and discovered comfort in their comprehension, their collective rebellion against the shadows that had sought to engulf them. "I want to help others," Emma told Miriam, her voice resolute, determined to ensure that no one else experiences such helplessness. Miriam felt her heart swell, her earlier skepticism regarding the spiritual giving way to a quiet respect for Emma's remarkable transformation. "You're already doing that," she remarked, her tone unwavering. "Your bravery shines brightly, illuminating the path for those around you." Emma smiled, yet her eyes wandered to the window, where the sunlight flickered, as though something were pushing against it from the other side. The hospital's hum intensified, taking on a sharper edge, a low guttural undertone that awakened a familiar unease. A faint, sour smell seeped into the room, reminiscent of the entity's insatiable hunger. Later, in solitude, Emma opened her journal, her pen gliding over the pages as she contemplated her journey. She penned, "I believed Lucas had shattered me, yet he merely revealed the strength that resides within me. The anguish, the dread, the entity he named, it did not triumph. I certainly did." She paused, her heart buoyant, the burden of her trials now a symbol of strength. The prayers, the oil, the unwavering support of Miriam, Stone, and Joshua, they had bestowed upon her the means to rediscover her essence, transforming her scars into a source of resilience. As she shut the journal, the shadows in the room appeared to thicken, the fluorescent lights flickering in a cadence that echoed the hum, now subtly distinct, Emma. A whisper so gentle it could have been a figment of her imagination. Her breath hitched, fingers gripping the cross with fierce determination, yet she stood resolute, refusing to waver. "You don't own me," she murmured, her voice laced with a quiet defiance. The hum diminished, shadows drawing back, yet the acrid scent persisted, a quiet testament to the fact that the entity, though diminished, remained lurking in the periphery. Eyes ablaze, they linger at the periphery of her existence, poised for the slightest fissure in her steadfastness. The chapel of the hospital radiated a gentle warmth, its stained glass windows casting vibrant prisms of color over the wooden pews, a striking juxtaposition to the clinical hallways that lay outside. Emma occupied the front row, her hands neatly folded in her lap, the Bible lying beside her, its pages well worn, a symbol of the resilience she had discovered within herself. The atmosphere was imbued with the gentle aroma of candle wax and gleaming wood, devoid of the acrid metallic taste that had plagued her for weeks. Yet, a subtle, persistent hum reverberated through the walls, a distant reminder of the presence that had almost ensnared her. Today, she felt unburdened, the heaviness of Lucas's betrayal and the entity's malevolence transformed from a chain into a scar, a testament to her strength. Muksu Joshua stood at the altar, his voice flowing gently as he guided a small congregation in a prayer for healing. His gray eyes locked onto Emma's, a warm smile spreading across his face, exuding the same compassion that had led her through Psalm 35 and the anointing oil. "We come together to pay tribute to those who confronted the shadows and discovered the light," he proclaimed, his voice echoing in the quiet of the chapel. Emma shut her eyes, allowing the prayer to envelop her, envisioning the golden shield that had fortified with every utterance, now a luminous armor that kept the entity's whispers at a distance. The maggots had vanished, her body mended, and her spirit, though marked, was once more her own. Dr. Miriam lingered at the rear, arms folded, her white coat abandoned for the day, a quiet recognition of the transformation within her. The chapel's warmth evoked recollections of her skepticism, her unwavering commitment to science, and her reluctance towards Stone's rituals and Joshua's prayers. Nevertheless, Emma's metamorphosis, the unmistakable essence of the being, compelled her to reevaluate. She had witnessed the maggots, listened to the whispers, sensed the burning eyes and the lurking shadows. Science had preserved Emma's body, yet it was faith that had salvaged her soul, and Miriam could no longer ignore the convergence of the two. She reflected on her own existence, the strict confines she had established, and pondered what other realms might await beyond, eager to be discovered. The congregation lifted their voices in a hymn, a harmonious blend that filled the air, and Emma added her own, a gentle yet unwavering sound, each note a testament to her resilience. The chapel's light appeared to throb, the hues of the stained glass vivid, as though mirroring the power she had regained. She reflected on the support group, the familiar faces of those who had triumphed over cults like Mr. Kane's, their narratives intertwining to create a tapestry of resilience that strengthened her own spirit. The entity's hum had grown faint, nearly eclipsed by the hymn, yet a trace of sourness hung in the air, a quiet reminder that its hunger still lingered, not entirely extinguished. Joshua drew near to Emma following the service, his hand resting softly on her shoulder. "You've come so far," he remarked, his voice brimming with pride. "Your radiance outshines the shadows you have encountered." Emma's smile radiated warmth, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears, her heart brimming with emotion. "I couldn't have done it without you," she said, her voice heavy with gratitude, or perhaps Miriam, or Stone. She cast a fleeting look at Miriam, who responded with a subtle nod, her eyes reflecting a gentle understanding of the path they had traversed together. Upon exiting the chapel, the hospital's corridors seemed to lose their oppressive weight, the fluorescent lights shining with a steadier glow. Yet, Miriam's eyes remained fixed on the shadows, where a soft but persistent hum continued to echo. Emma strolled alongside her, each step imbued with confidence, the cross necklace catching the light with a radiant gleam. The entity lay in a state of decline, its strength waning, yet Miriam felt an unsettling certainty that its fiery gaze lingered somewhere in the shadows, biding its time for a chance to re-emerge. Yet Emma's strength, her radiant light, stood as a vow that whatever lay ahead, they would confront it side by side. Emma perched at a quaint cafe table, the afternoon sun pouring through the window, draping a warm golden light over her laptop screen. The gentle clinking of cups and the soft murmur of voices enveloped the space, offering a warm reprieve from the once sterile silence of the hospital, now receding into the past. Her fingers lingered above the keyboard, the empty page of her new blog gazing back at her, a blank canvas awaiting the tale she was poised to unveil. She had named it From Shadows to Light, a reflection of her odyssey through Lucas's treachery, the terror of the entity, and the resilience she discovered in faith and community. The cross necklace shimmered at her throat, a subtle reminder of the prayers that had protected her, and she started to type, her words cascading with a clarity forged from resilience. "I was a vessel for darkness," she penned, "yet I discovered how to harness light." She recounted the maggots, the whispers, the burning eyes that had tormented her, yet also the comforting warmth of Muksu Joshua's prayers, the profound wisdom of Dr. Amina Stone, and the steadfast support of Dr. Miriam. Every sentence served as a stride toward recovery, a guiding light for those ensnared in the darkness of cults akin to Mr. Kane's. She hesitated, her heart swelling with emotion as memories of her support group flooded her mind, their collective narratives intertwining to create a rich tapestry of resilience that had emboldened her to find her voice. Her blog served a purpose beyond her own. It was a beacon for those seeking to reclaim their lives. In a quiet corner of the hospital, Miriam found herself in her office, the fluorescent lights casting a steady glow, their hum gently muted by the lingering warmth of the chapel's embrace. Amidst the chaos of her desk, filled with charts and papers, her mind wandered, ignited by an email from Dr. Amina Stone. "I am at the helm of a research project exploring cases akin to Emma's, where the realms of medicine and the mysterious converge. Your perspective would be greatly appreciated. We invite you to join us." Miriam's fingers glided over the screen, her initial skepticism fading into a soft, burgeoning curiosity. Emma's bravery, the entity's unmistakable presence, had broken through her strict limitations, revealing a realm where science and faith could harmoniously exist. She typed a reply, "I'm in," her heart racing with the allure of uncharted possibilities. Emma completed her inaugural blog post, her words unrefined yet luminous, and pressed publish, a subtle act of rebellion against the shadows that had sought to engulf her. She reclined, cradling her coffee, the cafe's glow enveloping her in a comforting embrace reminiscent of the prayers she had come to know. She envisioned her future, completing her studies, aiding others, and embracing a life unburdened by fear. The acrid metallic taste had vanished, the hospital's drone muted within her thoughts. Yet, as she cast her gaze beyond the window, the sunlight appeared to waver, a fleeting shadow that bore a subtle, bitter aftertaste, reminiscent of a murmur from a realm she had departed. Miriam emerged from her office, her mind occupied with thoughts of Emma, whose resilience had transformed the course of her own journey. The hospital's corridors glowed with brightness, the shadows softened, yet a faint, guttural hum persisted. So subtle it could have been a figment of her imagination. She halted, her gaze captivated by a window where the reflection appeared to tremble, offering a momentary vision of something. Eyes, maybe, or merely a dance of illumination. In the blink of an eye, it vanished, yet a lingering chill remained, a testament to the fact that the entity, though diminished, had not been wholly defeated. Emma perched atop a hill, gazing down at the city, as the sunset brushed the sky with strokes of gold and crimson. With her cross held tightly, her heart brimmed with emotion, and her future unfolded like a blank canvas, rich with potential. "I'm free," she whispered, a blend of prayer and promise. The air was crisp, yet a delicate, acrid whisper caressed her, so slight it was almost imperceptible, a lingering trace of the shadows she had conquered, now rendered insignificant by the brilliance she held inside. From shadows to light unfolds as a haunting narrative of strength and salvation, featuring Emma, a young woman wronged by love who confronts a sinister force conjured by avarice. With unwavering courage, the insight of Dr. Miriam, and the strength of faith, she metamorphoses suffering into resilience, demonstrating that not even the deepest shadows can snuff out the essence of the human spirit. This narrative delves into the confluence of scientific inquiry and spiritual exploration, the quest for justice, and the indomitable spirit to reclaim one's existence. Embark on Emma's adventure. Join our blog for the latest updates, share your personal tales of victory, and immerse yourself in a community that illuminates the darkness. Your voice holds significance. Join us now, and together we shall confront the shadows that lie ahead.